In this episode, I talk about how to adapt your content based on the platform that you're sharing it on. Welcome to episode 140 of The Honest Entrepreneur Show, where I help creatives like you to master your marketing. My name's Tom Ross, and let's get into it. Guys, little behind the scenes here with the show. I'm thinking about doing themes for certain weeks. So I might put out some stuff on my social profiles and be like, this week I feel like answering questions around niching. So ask some really specific questions around that. And I think that way it's going to help kind of focus down into some really, really specific questions, because I always love answering those. And to be honest, they're more fun, more beneficial, I think, than when people are like, niching, tell me about it. You know, when it's super broad like that, sometimes I struggle because there's so much within these topics. So I'm looking forward to going really specific on some things for you guys.
This question is from Isabella. How do you approach your content differently depending on the platform? Instagram is very much about the initial visual, but other platforms like Twitter are about attention-grabbing copy. Tom, do you edit the same content to fit the best aspect of each platform, or do you create new content for each?
Hey, Isabella. I love this question. I talked about this on a live group coaching thing recently, but what I essentially do is I put out my pillar content in the form of this show. I then see which episodes and which topics are resonating with people. And this is kind of predicated on the questions that I'm getting in from people. So when 10 people keep asking me about a topic, it's normally a good sign there's a demand for that type of information. I put out some episodes here. Some get like 3 times the downloads on the audio podcast or 5 times the views on my YouTube. And then often they're the topics where I'm like, okay, interesting. I'm going to turn that into a piece of content for Instagram. And that goes into my Instagram schedule. Completely different though. I actually create a new piece of content from scratch around that theme. I use my experience and some of the same ideas, but then I turn that into a digestible content slider thing. That's my whole thing on Instagram right now. It's like these slidable images. Within that, I then take kind of the core idea from that and I put it on Twitter oftentimes. So I will disseminate that down into a soundbite, into like a shareable quote, and I'll put that in words on Twitter. And that for me is just like a perfect example of how you should think about content. It's the same theme, it's the same piece of content, but it's repurposed based on the context of the platform. And it's a winning strategy, right? I'm going to continue to do it. I'm going to continue to pay attention to what content is performing well. And then I'm going to actually go and turn that into a blog post. And so I'm going to then go from like short form back into long form. When I see something blowing up on Instagram, I'm like, okay, I should probably take that and write a longer article around it. And I'm just going to keep testing and testing and testing. And I'm going to try different stuff out on Instagram that works natively there. I'm going to be doing stuff more with video on that platform, which is going to be a ton of fun. And then Twitter, again, I'm going to experiment. Like, I'm just always trying things. It's like I'll post images on Twitter and then be like, oh, that didn't really engage. I guess it's more text-based. And then I have fun with that. It's like, shall I have everything as one paragraph mashed together, or shall I have paragraph spaces so it's kind of easier on the eye? Shall I use emojis or shall I not? These nuances, they might sound trivial, but they really matter. And especially they matter when you pay attention to what's working and you test things and then you incrementally improve it. There's so many improvements on the way where it's like, I'm going to be toying with the layout of my slides on Instagram and the fonts I'm using and the colors to keep it fresh. So it's not all this dark blue. I'm going to be using different colors in every slide. With my videos, I started doing it where I had that kind of timeline so you could see how much you'd watched, because otherwise you'd be like, hold on, is this like on the 3rd loop, or where am I, or do I have to sit through this, or is it about to end? And it gives that kind of awareness. I listened to people and I started adding closed captions on my videos on Instagram, because I knew the majority of people scrolling their feed don't have the audio on, or they might not be in a place where they want to or can listen. So that's a nuance of that platform. Whereas if you're on YouTube, you will be listening. And if you're on a podcast, you definitely will be listening. And so I try some fun stuff on the podcast. But being specific to the platform you're on is everything. And I think the tides really are turning with this. Back in the day, what would happen is people would put out a piece of content and then literally, often with an automated app, it would reshare to 7 different platforms. So it would be the same content. So something that works on Twitter would fall flat on Facebook. It wouldn't perform in the same way because they're completely different audiences. They have different expectations. The way to really get good at this, go and buy Jab, 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 Right Hook by Gary Vee. He talks at length about this, and it's completely spot on. And since reading that book and just trying all these things, I feel I've got a much better handle on like how to treat these different platforms. And guess what? Like anything else, it takes time. I've got a lot better at Instagram because I've tried more stuff. I worked harder, I put in the hours, and I figured that out. Twitter, I'm kind of figuring it out, but I'm seeing some good traction there. I'm getting really high engagement relative to the number of followers, and that's starting to work a bit for me. But I don't feel completely confident I've hacked that platform. And equally, YouTube, it's like, still figuring out YouTube. Really, for me, this is like a video version of an audio podcast. The podcast is working pretty well, I think. The video, I'm sure we could like make it more snappy in the editing, and we could do some cool like title slides and mix that up. Like YouTube isn't there yet either, but guess what? I'm doing it. I'm doing the process. I know it's never going to be perfect. I'm just going to continue learning and trying and evolving, and that is what I recommend you do, Isabella. Question of the day: what is your favorite platform to distribute your content? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I appreciate you guys so much. I'm really enjoying the YouTube show. If you are too, then be sure to hit the subscribe icon and tick the little bell to get notifications when I post new content on this platform.